Welcome to reInvent 2021. In this session, we will talk about security posture monitoring with AWS Security Hub at Panasonic Avionics. We will primarily go into the layered security approach that customers can take to protect and monitor any threats and/or the security assessment of their data. My name is Himanshu Verma, and I'm the worldwide security specialist with AWS. I'm joined today with one of our customers, Anand, who's the head of platform engineering at Panasonic. In this session, I want to give you an overview of the importance of protecting data and understanding a defense in-depth strategy that customers can leverage with native AWS security services. Using the breadth and depth of the threat detection and monitoring services in conjunction with data protection services, customers can ensure that their data is protected and they have full visibility into their sensitive information and ensure that they're following security best practices with some of our native security services. And finally, I want to hand it over to Anand from Panasonic to talk about how they are leveraging these native security services from AWS to protect data at scale. First and foremost, I want to emphasize that as organizations are moving towards transformative ways of doing business and moving towards digital transformation, there is large amounts of data that is being collected. Data is valuable and has gravity. And as more and more data is collected by agile techniques, whether that's related to BYOD or bring your own devices, or the Internet of Things and IoT trends, and or moving their development and application development cycles into more continuous formats, that leads to a lot of data that applications collect. Also, this data is collected in various different use cases and applies to various different constraints when it comes to regulatory compliance requirements. Today, customers are taking that challenge onto themselves to ensure that this data is categorized appropriately and, more importantly, is protected to comply with these regulatory compliances. A report from Bennett Institute for Public Policy actually shows and highlights these different categories of the data spectrum. They also emphasize that as data needs to be protected, most often customers will apply access control policies, which will essentially restrict the use of this data by open entities, or will restrict the use of this data across multiple different use cases. At AWS, one of our core benefits and one of our core emphasis is to ensure ease of use when it comes to security services. Most of our security services are designed and built to ensure ease of use and customer experience and raise the bar when it comes to protecting sensitive information and or monitoring threats. A defense in-depth security and compliance strategy involves various layers of protecting information. This starts from identifying where all the assets are and identifying what all is important that needs to be protected or assessed. From there on, access and identity controls, infrastructure protection, data protection to protect the data at rest, in motion, in use, are some of the ways that the layered security approach is modeled. Some of the common cybersecurity frameworks, such as the NIST cybersecurity framework, also call out for these use cases. Once data is protected, then customers need to be aware of the threats that they might be facing with the access to data or threats that they might be looking at in their environments. And it is important and critical to monitor these events in real time and then take actions on those events. And finally, incident response also includes the ability to recover and remediate from an introvert operation or incident. Now, that defense in-depth strategy can be modeled when it comes to implementing a security program. Some of the fundamentals required to reduce the risk when it comes to protecting data includes, first and foremost, to know exactly where that data is. As organizations scale, And as the application development teams scale and more data is collected, it's important to know where that inventory of data is, and then more importantly, where the sensitive data is. Moving on to ability to detect and stop threats is the second element that is required in that security program. The ability to monitor in real time and view where all the threats are, what type of threats are being involved, and then being able to take actions and respond to them is critical. And finally, when it comes to security posture assessment, it involves the ability to continuously monitor and evaluate controls in your infrastructure to ensure that security best practice standards are being followed and have visibility into where the gaps might appear. And then automate operations that can address those gaps right away. Applying these fundamental security policies and the risk-reducing actions, AWS provides native security services that can be used to layer these security services. First and foremost is Amazon Macie, which is one of our core services launched last year in 2020 that allows customers to know exactly where their data is and discover sensitive data at scale. Secondly, our core fundamental threat detection service, Amazon GuardDuty, helps customers to detect and stop threats and also able to automate response actions. And finally, AWS Security Hub that provides customers a centralized monitoring place and a centralized monitoring service where customers can aggregate and view all of the findings and events and also continuously monitor and assess the security posture that's required to follow best security practices. This allows customers to then have a layered security approach that is continuous, scalable, and innovative with extensibility to integrate with their native applications within AWS. Let's take a deeper dive into some of the core features of these services and how they can be applied towards this security posture. First and foremost is Amazon Macie. Amazon Macie is a service that we relaunched in May of 2020. The new service is now 100% dedicated to discovering sensitive data at scale. It is a fully managed service that includes built-in data identifiers to identify sensitive data using pattern matching and machine learning, and helps customers and enables them to discover where all their data is and where all, especially the sensitive data is, so that then they can automate data protection policies around that sensitive data. The two core functions that Macie provides are discovering sensitive data at scale and understanding the security posture of the data inventory that customers have. The core features of Macie are enabled at the account level. The service is now designed to be scalable with multi-account setup integrated with AWS organizations. Once enabled at the account level, Macie automatically starts monitoring the S3 bucket inventory that customers might have. Being cloud native and being native to AWS, it provides the ease of use by directly integrating with S3 bucket information. All the bucket inventory, the metadata of objects in the bucket, as well as the control policies of these buckets are presented in a centralized dashboard within the service. From here, customers can determine which buckets are public, which buckets are accessible to external principals or shared with external principals, which buckets are encrypted versus not encrypted, and can get real-time alerts and notifications anytime policies on these buckets or data are being changed. That also gives customers the ability to prioritize where exactly would they want to scan for sensitive information. Using Macie's built-in discovery jobs, customers can either select target sources for the buckets, or they can define bucket level policies that can automatically trigger and initiate a scan job. Scanning the data involves deep inspection of the objects based on patterns that are built into the managed identifiers of Macie, or customers can define their own custom identifiers in the form of regular expressions. This gives them the scalability and flexibility to identify exactly what is sensitive in those objects. Macie supports a wide range of managed data identifiers, which can then be leveraged to discover sensitive information. And with the built-in API support, as well as built-in native integration with CloudWatch Events or EventBridge and Security Hub, it provides customers the ability to automate response and remediation actions that can then be taken on the sensitive data. Macie's sensitive data inspection jobs are the key to discovering sensitive information. The default functionality leads to continuous monitoring of bucket policies and enumerating any new buckets or assets that are being added to those buckets. And then from there on, customers can define policies such as anytime a bucket meets the criteria of being public, or a bucket meets the criteria of being shared externally, etc. Those policies can trigger scan jobs. Customers then have the ability to define the flexible scope of what needs to be scanned, how often it needs to be scanned, and where all do they want to inspect and scan for sensitive data. Object criteria within the buckets are also available, which can be used to define the scope of Macie's jobs. Customers can schedule the frequency of how often do they want to scan. Automatically by default, Macie's scheduled jobs allow customers to scan for only the differential objects that are new and landing in the buckets. And using the managed data identifiers that are available in Macie, customers can comply with various different regulatory needs that enforce or require to protect sensitive information in the categories of credentials or secrets, which includes API keys, PINs, passwords, etc., financial information such as credit cards, bank account numbers, personal identifiable information such as names, addresses, locations, national IDs, and healthcare information. Additionally, in addition to the built-in data identifiers, Macie also allows customers to define their own regular expressions as custom data identifiers. Examples would include if your applications require customers to enter some sensitive information in the form of customer ID or a subscriber ID. Those are keys that can be defined as custom identifiers to then be included in the scan jobs as well. All of this is then reported as findings and then can be leveraged within the Macie Service Console or through EventBridge routed to external services and tools for automation operations, and more importantly, natively integrated into AWS Security Hub, which is our centralized service as part of this layered security approach. This is where Macie is helping customers to maintain regulatory compliance by identifying where exactly the data is, who all has access to it, more importantly, identifying what all is sensitive, and then orchestrating response actions to ensure proper data protection policies are applied, makes customers' business enablement needs to cater to the data governance as well as data protection requirements as well. The second service in this layered approach is Amazon GuardDuty. GuardDuty is our foundational threat detection service that uses machine learning as well as built-in managed threat intelligence to identify known malicious threats as well as abnormal activity or potential events and threats. GuardDuty can help identify malicious and highly suspicious activity, and the scope of GuardDuty has recently been increased to not only protect AWS accounts, workloads, but also data stored in Amazon S3. In September of last year, we launched a new feature in Amazon GuardDuty that now allows for Amazon S3 protection. Amazon GuardDuty already monitors automatically, once enabled at the account level, any network activity which is recorded in DNS and VPC flow logs, any API activity within the AWS accounts which is recorded in CloudTrail APIs, and most recently, the data plane events such as the put and get APIs to S3 data. With a single click, S3 protection can be enabled in Amazon GuardDuty. If you're enabling accounts or you have enabled GuardDuty in your accounts post August of last year in 2020, S3 protection is by default enabled. However, a large number of customers already had GuardDuty enabled. In those cases, you will need to go in and ensure that GuardDuty for S3 protection is enabled. Once enabled, it automatically starts monitoring the data plane APIs for S3 and then reports any suspicious and or malicious activity towards the data access in the form of findings. These findings are in three different categories. First are policy findings, which are at the control plane, and GuardDuty will report any changes to the bucket policies. Additionally, GuardDuty will report using our machine learning algorithms will determine any abnormal activity and any suspicious activity. These are access requests from unusual locations and or potentially suspicious locations, or are exfiltration attempts where large amounts of data is being moved from a bucket to external entities. And using threat intelligence, which is curated by AWS and our security analysts ourselves, but also by our integrated partners such as Proofpoint and CrowdStrike, GuardDuty is also able to determine any malicious access to the data in the form of bad IPs or access requests from a known Tor or malicious IP, etc. All of this is then reported in the GuardDuty findings. Earlier this year, we enhanced the service to provide more contextual details in these findings. And we enhanced our machine learning models to provide more information to customers as to the threat purpose, the threat actor, as well as what API calls are actually being called. GuardDuty also provides information to customers what are the usual and the unusual API calls towards their data or towards their control plane APIs that we see as part of the finding details now. This is also done automatically and continuously and integrated directly with AWS organizations for scale and multi-account management. GuardDuty helps customers satisfying the threat detection and monitoring use case by ensuring that customers have full visibility into who all is accessing their data, and especially if that data is being accessed from suspicious or malicious locations, and then allows them to integrate GuardDuty with either third-party partner tools or native AWS services such as Security Hub, where the findings are automatically routed to then take automatic response and remediation actions. Next up, and the third service in this layered approach, is AWS Security Hub. Security Hub provides the centralized monitoring capability to customers. It helps customers solve for three key elements. Number one, it answers the question whether or not customers are secure. Security Hub is continuously evaluating multiple controls in the backend automatically once enabled at the account level. And these controls are evaluated against various standards. These are either internal AWS standards for security best practices, such as the Amazon Security Best Practices or the CIS benchmarks, or external standards such as PCI DSS. On the basis of the evaluation of those controls, we also provide customers a high-level score that can be leveraged to evaluate where their security posture is. And any deviation is reported as findings within the service. The second element that Security Hub helps address is to prioritize where exactly should customers take actions or they need to address any response or remediation activities. Oftentimes, security teams are inundated with a lot of different tickets or a lot of different findings. Using the Security Hub ticketing as well as centralized monitoring feature, customers can then prioritize where exactly they should take actions. Security Hub provides a lot of contextual information with regards to aggregating these findings in insights per resource, which can then be leveraged to then take actions and respond and remediate. And finally, the third is automating response. By normalizing the format of the findings into Amazon Security Finding format for not only the natively AWS integrated services, but also the 60 plus partner integrations that Security Hub already provides, customers and their security teams then have one format to deal with, and without requiring the need to parse various different formats, they can easily automate response and remediation operations, which are consistent across all these different services. Using that centralized monitoring service and the recently added features in Security Hub that allow it to scale to various different accounts by AWS organization integration and making it easier to enable that service and the security standard evaluation across all your AWS accounts, customers can aggregate all of these findings from services such as Macie, GuardDuty, Inspector, as well as other third-party integrated services in one place. Security Hub most recently also added cross-regional aggregation of findings, which gives security teams, quote unquote, a single pane of glass across all their AWS regions in one place. From there, customers can either define custom actions, which is a feature built into the service, or they can use the EventBridge and CloudWatch event rules to define what type of operations they would like to take with the findings. These could be simple operations such as alerting and notification using SNS alerts, or invoking Lambda and step functions to take more enhanced automated response actions, such as opening tickets in ticketing queues or routing these findings into security incident event monitoring SIM tools, and then taking automated actions there. Customers also have the ability to add more insights and decorate the findings with additional information that will be helpful for the security teams in their downstream automation processes. Security Hub helps customers to automate response and remediate any findings that they have identified and monitored. It collects findings from the native services and aggregates them across all accounts, and most recently with the new feature across all regions in one place. Customer security teams can define a home region and then aggregate findings from all other regions in one place, allowing them to ensure that when it comes to protecting data and findings related to sensitive data or related to anomalous access or malicious access to their data, they can correlate those findings along with Security Hub's security posture assessment that also includes controls and evaluations around S3 protection as well as data protection. Using this correlation, they can then automate response and remediation actions. Hopefully, the combination of these three services provides insight into how data can be protected and how the security posture assessment can be leveraged using Security Hub, GuardDuty, and Macie, and monitoring all of these services in one place. Now with that, I also want to give an opportunity to one of our customers to highlight how they are using these services and how they have been helpful in enabling their security posture assessment. You guys might have been traveling recently, or if you've ever been into airplanes and have enjoyed in-flight entertainment, that is all most likely powered by Panasonic Avionics, one of the largest providers of in-flight entertainment. I will let Anand dive deeper into how they are leveraging and orchestrating these services and highlight that. With that, over to Anand.
Thank you, Himanshu, for that kind introduction. My name is Anand Desikan, and I'd like to share our story at Panasonic Avionics around layered security approach. Panasonic Avionics has been around 40 plus years. We have been driving digital transformation within our business and also for our passengers and our customers within using our pioneering solutions, systems, platforms, and services that make flying more valuable. Every year, about 2.7 billion passengers use Panasonic Avionics solutions. on the air. Panasonic Avionics has been around for 40 plus years, as I said. We have, in fact, been on a cloud digital transformation journey for the past 4 years. In that, we have been able to transform ourselves to provide more time to market faster with our solutions that we have now born in the cloud. Some of these solutions are powering ancillary revenue for our customers and also making flying more valuable and more of a pleasurable experience, increasing passenger retention through personalized experiences, delighting and engaging our passengers with immersive entertainment, and also providing a suite of wellness solutions within our suite of products. The value proposition for our customers has been immense. A faster time to market with some of our products and solutions powered by cloud has been a game changer. With that, a number of data sources that we've been running on our on-prem data centers now have been migrated over to the cloud, and also provide a significant value for delivering personalized experiences in a more secure and personalized way to our passengers. With that, we also have a strict focus on reducing latencies as well as reducing costs by leveraging more serverless compute and high-order PaaS services within Amazon Web Services. Panasonic Avionics, when we started off with the digital transformation, we set out some design tenets that were requiring to have our whole approach set up right way. Native cloud first, automate everything, and also repatterning for the cloud were at the core of how we would build out our services on Amazon Web Services platform. With that, security by default was a front and center because we had to make sure that our security posture was set up the right way. We started off with a basic set of services, but also built on top of it. And we will walk through a little bit more about how we did that in the next few slides. Harvesting a lot of the data lake assets to drive outcomes has been at the center of our goal as part of our digital transformation journey. We collect a number of data sets from our passenger data, machine data, real-time telemetry coming from our ground services, which we offer as connectivity services. And we also have a number of hardware and manufacturing data that we actually collect into our data lake. Protecting the data assets in our data lake is our number one goal. And how we have accomplished that to drive a lot of our operational efficiencies to our different stakeholders, both internal and external, and also deliver actionable insights to our customers to increase passenger satisfaction and also increase passenger engagement has been a true change in the way that we have accomplished that. Panasonic Avionics Data Lake on AWS is the heart of how we manage our data assets. Today, we have a number of airside and groundside data sources that are injected using real-time streaming, batch uploads, as well as a constant telemetry that is fed into our data lake as part of our data lake implementation. All of these data sources are segmented into a multi-account, multi-tenant model into our data lake to preserve the data integrity and also the data security as part of our implementation. One of the implementations that we have completed at the core of the platform is how do we provide data isolation and security to a number of different stakeholders, including applications, as well as our end users that are able to now visually make use of the data using the security context that we provide. PACS cloud architecture principles, when we started the digital transformation context, is at the core of how we have implemented any and all of our services. We use an application architecture review, security architecture review, and deployment architecture review using some of our core tenets that we have created. AWS first. We use a number of services on the AWS platform. And also, with respect to that, we also use, if it is on AWS, use it approach. 97% of our services that we've implemented leverage managed services and not self-managed. This keeps our costs low and also provide a wide variety of implementation choices that our developers and our implementation partners could use. We also have a approach in our design tenant that we use at a very, very deep way. What would Amazon Web Services do? So we minimally design our services that can be replaced when AWS services are launched. With the example of our security posture, we started off with implementation of guard duty, and then we implemented Macie as part of our implementation using CloudTrail and config services. And then now with the launch of Security Hub, we are now able to extend that beyond the basic implementation that we had into a much more broader and more robust implementation. Security First is one of the main tenets that we include in our approach. All services are integrated with the security services and with no exceptions. Low ops or choose services with low to no ops is one of the main areas where we could keep the costs low in any of our implementation choices. We leverage the AWS well-architected framework, and we have chosen some of the design tenets as part of our implementation. Perform ops as code, security at all layers, application design for HA, serverless architectures, and use of managed services are at the core of how we implement in Panasonic today. Let's dig into the layered security with automated response at Panasonic Avionics. Today, we have a significant amount of data, as I said, in the data lake, and we also constantly getting an increased amount of data into our data lake. How do we protect that? So we historically had an implementation on AWS CloudTrail and config with some custom work that we did on AWS. Today, we actually have a significant amount of upside with the use of guard duty and Macie to automatically detect policy findings and also provide Amazon S3 findings using the machine learning based models that Amazon Web Services implemented. With that, we are now able to aggregate a lot of our findings across a multi-account architecture into Security Hub, and now able to drive a lot of the preventative actions and also mitigative actions using the CloudWatch event trigger in our implementation. All of this is also aggregated into our Amazon QuickSight dashboards that provides full visibility into our data lake as well as our security posture implementation to really drive the security and compliance culture within Panasonic, and also drive it into our products and services that we go take it to our customers. With that, thank you for attending the session and enjoy re:Invent.